Clementine, Chapter 5. As soon as I got home, I started watching for Margaret's feet. From my kitchen window, I can see the sidewalk in front of the lobby doors. Since I have memorized all the shoes of everybody who lives in our building, I always know who's coming in or going out. I might be a detective when I grow up. I waited and I waited and I waited, which is the hardest thing in the world, especially when you have a hot head, which I did, because my mother made me wear my winter hat so she didn't have to look look at my chopped off hair. Finally, I saw Margaret's purple sneakers, and I ran up to meet her in the lobby. Let me see. Margaret pulled her lips out of the way so I could see all of her teeth. Margaret's mouth was the most beautiful place I had ever seen. It was even more beautiful than Disneyland, Sleeping Beauty's castle, which I was going to visit when I'm 10. Every tooth had its own sparkly silver bracelet, and there were little blue bits sprinkled in around like tiny presents. They're rubber bands, said Margaret. Every month I'll go in and get them changed, and they'll give me different colors, whatever I want. That gave me such a good idea. I pulled off my hat to show Margaret that she wasn't the only one, and that made her happy. Then I told her my good idea. You can pick the color of my new hair. Whatever color you want, you can draw it on my head. That made her even happier. Those markers are still in my room. Let's go, she said. Is your mother still mad? I asked. Yep, but she's going to a movie with Alan this afternoon. Alan is Margaret's mother's special friend, which is the grown-up's word for boyfriend. So we went up to her apartment. Mitchell was there watching TV. When he saw my hair, he grabbed his chest and fell off the couch, pretending to have a heart attack. Then he smacked his forehead and said, "You guys are unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable." Even though he is older and doesn't have to be so nice to us, I think he likes me. Here's Mitchell falling off the couch. Margaret glared at him. Then she jabbed her elbow into my side, so I glared at him, even though I didn't even know why we were doing that. I'm not so sure Margaret is the easy one in that family. She dragged me into her room. I can't wait for summer, she growled. My mother's finally going to get rid of him. You mean baseball camp? He wants to go, Margaret. That's not getting rid of someone. Margaret gave me her "I'm in 4th grade and you're not" look. Goodbye and good riddance, she muttered. Then she got out my mother's markers. They were all still there, and they looked exactly the same, with none of the caps chewed up. I don't know how Margaret does that. She picked a bright green one and colored my hair, and then drew some curls on my forehead and neck. No pointy lines, I reminded her, just round ones. Thinking about pointing lines made me wonder about Margaret's bracelets again. How do they feel? I bet they're full of pointy points. Nope, they feel like heaven, Margaret said. No pointy parts at all. They're as soft as rubber ears, rabbit ears, baby rabbit ears. Too bad you can't have them. She kept her lips stretched out of the way to show me her teeth the whole time she talked, so it was kind of hard to understand her. But I did. I'm getting them too, I said, next week. Then I pulled my hat back and ran down to my apartment quick to make this a non-lie. I need bracelets on my teeth, I told my mom. They're beautiful and they feel wonderful. First of all, my mother said, they don't feel wonderful. Not in the beginning, anyway. Margaret's mother stopped in earlier asking if we had any medicine left over from when your brother was teething. She told me Margaret cried all the way home. That Margaret. Well, I still want them next week. And second of all, you don't need them. Your teeth are straight enough, which is the most unfair thing I have ever heard. I can feel them bending, I said, and suddenly I could, so we better make an appointment. Then, before my mom could go to third of all, which is usually the worst one, we heard my brother waking up from his nap. I'm coming, Radish, I called to him. Go for a walk, he asked. Go for a walk, he asked when I came into his room. You're lucky to have me for a big sister, I told him. I have to remind him of this every day because he forgets. We went into the kitchen and I got out the wok. Nobody invented this trick for me when I was little. Then he climbed into the wok and grabbed the handles, and I gave him a really good spin. He went whirling around, bumping into cabinets, and then he got out and walked wobbly until he fell. Chapter 6. Here's the picture. Chapter 6. Thursday morning, I woke up with a spectacular idea. I'm lucky that way. Spectacular ideas are always springing up in my brain. The secret thing I know about ideas is that once they spring into your brain, you have to grab them fast or else they get bored and bounce away. So I called Margaret and told her I had a good surprise for her and we needed to sit in the back seat of the bus. It is unfair that sometimes even spectacular, full ideas don't work out. It is also unfair that that bus drivers are allowed to send you to the principal's office. It's not my fault, I explained to Principal Rice before she could say any of those "Clementine, why did you do that?" trick. Margaret has very slippery head skin. Mrs. Rice fell into her chair hard. She clapped her hands over her ears and squeezed like her brains were trying to jump out. Part of me wanted to see something like that, but most of me said, "Not today, thanks." Margaret's slippery head skin is not the problem, she said. The problem is that you tried to glue your hair onto Margaret's head. You've been having lots of problems this week. First, you cut off Margaret's hair. Then you colored her head. Yesterday, you cut off your own hair and colored your own head. And today, this. Clementine, what's going on between you and Margaret? How do you spell nitrogen? I asked Mrs. Rice. Sometimes grown-ups get distracted if you ask them school things. But Mrs. Rice just spelled nitrogen for me and went right back to the Margaret thing. Are you angry with her? No, I said. Okay, fine, I yelled it, but I didn't know I was going to yell it. And I couldn't stop my yelling voice. Here is how good of a friend I am to Margaret. I'm not even mad at her for last week at my party, even though she breathed on the M&M rocks in the back of the dump truck, which was the best part of my cake. And then she sat on my sparkler glitter paint, which was my best present, and said it was an accident, but I don't think so. And now she's trying to look like me, except she gets to have bracelets and I don't. Oh, said Principal Rice. And then she didn't say anything at all, just looked at me, which is the worst thing of all that can happen to you in the principal's office. I sat there swinging my legs back and forth like crazy for 300 hours. And then I said, "Can I be done here now?" And she said, "Okay, fine." Margaret's mother let her come over to play after school. Does this mean she's all done being mad at me? I asked. No, she just doesn't think there's anything left for you to do to my head. Besides, she says, I'm 9 years old and I should be able to protect my own head. Then I told her some good news I had just thought up. I'm now 9 years old now, too. No, you're not. You're 8. I came to your birthday last week, which I remembered.